for listening. I'm Steve Scheinman, president of the Skaneateles Festival Board of Directors, and this is the SkanFest podcast, an interview series for the Skaneateles Festival. We are a summer concert series based in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York during the month of August. This year, we are presenting our 46th season. On the podcast, we spend time getting to know our visiting artists who travel the world making music of the highest caliber. Conductor Daniela Candillari brings, in the words of the New York Times, her confidence and apparently inexhaustible verve to opera houses and concert stages throughout North America and internationally. She is renowned for guiding groundbreaking world premieres to the stage, in the words of reviewers, with a sure hand as well as her incisive leadership of classical music's most frequently performed masterpieces. Maestro Candillari is with us at the festival for a collaboration with Mark and Maggie O'Connor and orchestra at the Robinson Pavilion at Agnello's Vineyards on August 16th. Thanks for finding the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
First off, we'd love to hear about where you come from and how your journey to music began.
Absolutely. So I was born in Serbia, in Novi Sad. My grandmother was an opera singer, and that was my first love of music. My sister was a huge music fan, as was my dad and my mom and my stepdad. So all of our family were real fans of music, and music was always present in our home. But it was my grandmother who sort of introduced me to the opera world and the theater. And I remember seeing my first Carmen and then Traviata, and I fell in love with the world of musical storytelling in a way. I sort of had hopes to become a singer, which fortunately did not work out. I think we can all agree on that. But I started playing piano when I was about 5 years old. And it started with my grandmother. I first learned a couple of arias from Carmen because I just love that music. And then I went to music school starting at age 6, which was the earliest we could enter music school. Then I followed that up by skipping high school, and I went straight to university when I was 15 in Austria. In the meantime, my country fell apart. It was Yugoslavia, and my mother and my stepdad moved to Slovenia. I moved with them. And then shortly after my short stay in Slovenia, I went to Austria and started studying piano performance, knowing all along I wasn't going to be a classical concert pianist because I didn't enjoy making music by myself at the end of the day. So I started playing chamber music with clarinet initially, then with string players. Then I branched out to sort of every instrument. Then I started working with singers, and through that, I started coaching opera. And that's a short version.
So your arrival at conducting was kind of an evolution.
It really was. I never thought of myself as a conductor. I was very curious about many, many facets of music. I was curious about composing. I was curious about how music is structured. I remember my first summer studying in Austria. I was 15, so I sort of had this drive to catch up with everyone else who was 18, 19 and older. And I took 3 months of the summer vacation and went and analyzed all of Beethoven's piano sonatas. There were 32 of them. I analyzed all of them. And that was just one of the greatest summers of my life. So this sort of analytical mind was always present with me. And then the part of making music with other people was something that I enjoyed immensely. I could always practice piano for 10 hours and learn all the repertoire that was needed, but it wasn't, I knew somewhere there's something else happening. So when I started working in opera, when I started working with singers, there were a couple of different conductors who told me, "You're a conductor." And I was like, "No, I'm not." I never thought of that. And then situation sort of fell into my lap and life took me in the direction that I was supposed to go in. And that was conducting.
And then you evolved into composing as well.
Yeah, composing was always something that was sort of a side interest of mine because I loved improvising. And as I said, I loved analyzing music. But what I really loved learning in analysis was how composers either came up with colors or with harmonic structures that they did or with form altogether. And composition was something that I always dabbled in. But then one of my friends back in Slovenia asked me to actually write music for a play she was directing. And it was very low pressure. They needed about 45 minutes of music. I did, 45 minutes or so. And I said, whatever you don't use, like, I don't care. It's fine. So I just felt free to do whatever I wanted to do. And they ended up using all of my music. And then after that, people started asking me to write pieces for them, which was a new direction then, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than your grandmother, who do you look for? What figures give you inspiration?
Well, there's so many. In conducting, I always think of the greats that came before us. Leonard Bernstein is one of my role models, Carlos Kleiber, another one. I think it always matters what the repertoire is and what did this particular person develop. How did they shape a musical institution? How did they shape maybe a country? What was their dedication to a certain repertoire? I'm a huge fan of Esa-Pekka Salonen, and he combines sort of the composition and conducting. Thomas Addis, compositionally, is one of my favorite composers to dig into, but also composers that I work with, because I do a lot of contemporary music. So a lot of composers that I work with on a regular basis are sort of my inspiration and my sources. And then I would also say not almost, but every colleague I work with ends up being an inspiration in some way, because I love learning. I love learning how people excel at their craft and sort of what their routines are and how they think about music. So literally any of my colleagues that I worked with is an inspiration.
Well, that says a lot about the quality of people you collaborate with.
Well, thank you.
So what do you listen to in your free time?
Everything but heavy metal, pretty much. In my free time, I love listening to different music. I love broadening my horizons. I love listening to music that I'm not regularly exposed to. When I moved to New York, I started out as a pianist. That was my main livelihood, and I used to play in a tango band. So I used to listen to a lot of tango music. I listened to Piazzolla nonstop. I listened to Argentinian tango ensembles, to singers. So I really sort of go through these phases of different focus. At some point, I discovered that Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead was an incredible film composer. And I went on this complete spiral and was just listening to Johnny Greenwood. And so I go through these stages of listening to either folk music or pop music or, rock. It really depends on the mood and the day, but as my curiosities, my tastes in music are very broad and very vast and quite wild.
And tango, do you dance?
I don't. That's the only dance I never learned how to do. I used to dance for 8 years when I was growing up. And tango somehow never made it into the classes that I was taking, but that might still happen.
So are there particular pieces that you really love conducting?
100%. It's always the piece that I'm doing at the moment that I love conducting, because it does take all of the dedication. It takes just really living with the ensemble, living with music, and thinking about it all the time, that I think makes a performance. But if there are composers that I steer towards more naturally, I would say those are Slavic composers. I'm a huge Shostakovich fan of every note he's ever written. I love Tchaikovsky. I love Dvorak. Smetana as well, Prokofiev, Stravinsky. I mean, sort of Slavic composers that have been revolutionaries in a way, is my natural tendency. I love late romantic music. I love Brahms, symphonies by Brahms. Number 2 is one of my favorite ones. Sibelius as well. So those are in general, the composers that in symphonic world that I gravitate towards. In opera, I've done a number of different styles. Last year I did Baroque. I did Handel's Julius Caesar, where I also played harpsichord and conducted from harpsichord. And maybe that's where my brain is not naturally gearing towards. But the exploration of the sound worlds, the exploration of the connection of text with music and articulation, and finding the different colors with the orchestra was actually really fun. But in opera land, I tend to go towards late romantic and Puccini and Verismo, and the bigger the drama, the better it is.
So, what from your experiences do you draw on to keep coming back to music with new energy?
Yeah, I think it's the curiosity. It's revisiting the pieces. It's finding what they mean. We all evolve as human beings. We all change. I wasn't the same person or the same artist I was a year ago. And I think having the chance to revisit those pieces with a new lens is really invaluable and something that always gives me energy. I love making music with people. As I mentioned earlier, the solo piano life was, great, but I always was really looking forward to making chamber music with colleagues and just being in that constant dialogue. So it's always the idea of creating something new with people that I'm working with that gives me energy and enthusiasm.
So one of your chief appointments is as principal conductor of the Opera Theater of St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Which is a house known for premiering new works. You yourself have extensive experience working with contemporary pieces. Can you talk about what draws you to opera, obviously from childhood, as you've been telling us, and where does it intersect with new music?
So the drive to opera really does come from my childhood, but what I've discovered in my work is that I really love combining the two worlds. I love combining the stage with the pit. It's sort of chamber music at the highest possible level because we also have a physical level to deal with. And when those elements come together and performances can be spontaneous within a structure, within a certain frame, it's one of the greatest experiences one can have as a conductor and as a performer. I always think of opera and voices that are added into opera, that are written in opera, as an extension of the orchestra. So one really cannot live without the other. That's my main love for opera. Within contemporary music, what I mentioned before, I love working with composers. I love being next to them and hearing what they have to say about why they wrote what they wrote, why is it at a certain tempo, what's the meaning behind it. And the biggest takeaway that came by working with composers and also me writing when I have time was that we realize we're not walking with gods when we're performing Beethoven symphonies, when we're performing, Mozart symphonies or any of the past of the traditional canon. And I think it makes music making much more direct, much more personal. And I think it also transfers over to the audience.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, you are here for an orchestra concert outdoors tomorrow at Daniela's Vineyard. This event features an exciting collaboration with Mark and Maggie O'Connor, as well as a world premiere from Jerod and Impichchaachaaha Tate. Can you talk about how your approach to learning a new score to conduct for a concert goes, and maybe a little bit about those pieces of music?
Absolutely. So my process with new scores is kind of always in the same shape. I tend to read through everything and sort of anticipate or mark where the trickier parts are for me and what might be trickier for orchestra. So then I will always focus on that. I also tend to sing every line as I'm studying. And I'll sit at the piano and play through harmony so that I can have an idea of the harmonic world of the composer. If it's a piece that's been already performed and recorded, I will go and listen to it just to have an idea of what other people have said with it, what has already been mentioned, and sort of the stylistical language that the piece lives in. And now that brings me actually to Seasons that we're performing with Mark. We were just talking about it today. The piece was written 25 years ago. And
By Mark.
By Mark, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the Seasons, right? Because we also performed the Thread Suite with Mark and Maggie. And the Thread Suite was, I think, 1986, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an earlier piece of his. But the musical language in Seasons, it's almost like transcribing bebop. It is so unique in the way that the phrasing works, and there are so many things that we can put down in notation, but then at the end of the day, we need to find the musical line in it and the musical language and the inflection and sort of how the phrases flow, because every music does have a little bit of give and take on any given day. But that's the idea that I always sort of try to find. What is the composer trying to say, and what are the pieces of the puzzle that will have to be woodshed more, and what are the pieces that can be trusted a little bit more. The piece that we're playing, the Woodland songs that we're playing by Jerod, was just released today, actually, by Dover Quintet, and it was written for them. So this is a world premiere of this new arrangement for string orchestra, and it's 5 different movements. Each movement depicts a different animal, and it's highly rhythmical music. It's very virtuosic for every single section. So for first violin, second violins, violas, cellos, and bass. And there are elements of it that remind me of Bartók's music and of Prokofiev's. And one other thing that I think is common to both of those pieces is that there's an incredible dance element to all of them. So they're incredibly visually, they sort of pop off the page, as it were.
And Dover was here just recently.
I think so, yeah. Yes. I remember seeing that.
So, of course, the program begins with Mozart, Eine, Kleine, Nachtmusik.
Yes.
Do you want to reflect on how that fits with the program?
Absolutely. So when I was thinking about it, I think Eine, Kleine, Nachtmusik is one of those incredible pieces that is recognizable by all. And the more I think about it, the more I think it's actually hard to pinpoint what the melody is. Because the opening 4 measures are tam pa 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 pa, right? That's not necessarily a melody, but rather a motif. And one thing that I was thinking about today as well, and in the process of preparing this, for all the composers of the past and present, I think there's always an incredible improvisatory motive. So Eine kleine Nachtmusik, to me, almost sounds like a notated improvisation for the entire orchestra. Because what we hear in the first 4 measures is a framework of what then happens later in the entire movement, with all the melodic shifts, all of the harmonic shifts. But basically, that's the outline, and then it's the sort of structured improvisation that happens from the entire orchestra. So if there was one red thread to combine all the pieces, I would say it's this incredible dance motif and improvisational quality of every single piece that we're performing tomorrow.
Well, I've never thought of Mozart as jazz.
Oh, well, I'm forgetting now. There was a Jacques Louisier, the pianist, who did these incredible transcriptions of Bach pieces, Bach compositions, and he would improvise on them. But with Mark, we were talking today about the improvisational quality in like Beethoven's 4th Piano Concerto. It was at the premiere, it was improvised, and it was just a figured bass that was written out, and everything else was improvisation. So I think improvisation in general in classical music has, gone a little bit off to the side, because of course we need to have a way of organizing music. But I think when it can happen collectively, it's actually quite an amazing experience.
Yes. Well,
within a structure, always, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So are there any particular projects you have upcoming that you'd like to tell us about?
Yes. So my season, right after we finish here, I actually go to New Jersey. We're doing a recording of Renee Ort's opera 10 Days in a Madhouse, which we premiered at Opera Philadelphia 2 years ago. So that's the next thing I'm gearing up for it. And then starting in fall, I'm making my Chicago Symphony debut in beginning of October, I go to Wuppertal for a concert with the symphony orchestra. I have my Canadian opera debut in January. As I mentioned, I go to England a couple of times this year. One of the first times is in September at Guildhall School, but then I also go back to Liverpool Philharmonic for a concert with Sibelius Second Symphony and a piece by Mark Simpson, The Immortal. It's a requiem that he's reorchestrating right now. Then I have performance with London Philharmonic and Terence Blanchard on a Requiem for Katrina and Duke Ellington's River Suite. I go back to Louisiana Philharmonic. So it's a fun season filled with opera and symphonic works.
That is just very exciting to listen to.
Thank you.
Do you ever get to stay in one place for more than a few days?
When I do opera, those are usually longer engagements. So I also go back to my alma mater, Indiana University. I'm doing La Bohème there, which is one of my favorite operas. And it was actually the first opera that I coached when I was at Indiana. So it's kind of like coming home and coming full circle. I also have a concert back at Juilliard. We're doing Dvorak cello concerto and Copland Rodeo for dance episodes. So that's the season. And I'm excited about every single program.
I can see why. Yes. Well, Maestro Daniela Candillari is with us for a concert with the orchestra on August 16th at Daniela's Vineyard, featuring Mark and Maggie O'Connor, as well as a world premiere by Jerod and Impichchaachaaha Tate. To learn more about SkanFest events and to buy tickets, please visit www.skanfest.org. Daniela, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.